A urologist colleague told me something that stopped me cold. He said, 85% of my male patients are worried about their size. Meanwhile, research shows 85% of women are satisfied with their partner's size. Think about that disconnect. The vast majority of men are anxious about something that the vast majority of women don't consider a problem. By the end of this video, you'll know what the actual science says about size preferences, why most men are worrying about the wrong things, and what actually matters for sexual satisfaction. Stay until the end because point number 7 is going to completely change how you think about this topic. Let me ask you something honestly. How much mental energy have you spent worrying about whether you measure up? If you're like most men, probably more than you'd care to admit. And here's the problem. You're comparing yourself to unrealistic standards, worrying about something that research shows matters far less than you think. Hit that subscribe button because we're about to have the evidence-based conversation that most men desperately need but rarely get. No myth, no ego protection, just science. Now, before you dismiss this as just another opinion piece, let me establish why this information matters and why you should trust it. I've reviewed dozens of peer-reviewed studies on sexual satisfaction and size preferences. I've consulted with urologists who treat male sexual health concerns. I've examined large-scale surveys involving thousands of women. And here's what the research consistently shows. Men's anxieties about size are dramatically disconnected from women's actual preferences and satisfaction factors. Most men are worried about the wrong thing entirely. So let's break down what the science actually says. Number 1. The average is smaller than you think and you're probably normal. Here's where most anxiety starts. Men have completely distorted ideas about what's average. They think the average is 6 or 7 inches. They compare themselves to what they see in adult content. They assume they're below average when they're actually perfectly normal. Let's get the science straight. A comprehensive study published in the British Journal of Urology International, analyzing data from over 15,000 men, found the average erect penis length is 5.16 inches. Not 6. Not 7. Just over 5 inches. The average girth is 4.59 inches around. Think about what this means. If you're anywhere between 4.5 and 5.7 inches in length, you're in the average range. That's where most men fall. If you're above 5.7 inches, you're actually above average. Yet research shows that 45% of men wish they were larger, even though most of them are already average or above. Here's the kicker. Women's estimates of average size are much more accurate than men's. When surveyed, women consistently estimate average size closer to the actual research numbers, while men overestimate by 1 to 2 inches. You're not competing with reality. You're competing with a fantasy that doesn't exist. The solution to this anxiety is information. Know the actual statistics. Understand that adult content is not representative of reality. Those performers are selected specifically for being well above average. Comparing yourself to them is like comparing your physique to professional bodybuilders and feeling inadequate. It's an unfair and inaccurate standard. Number 2. Women's preferences are far more variable than you realize. This is where it gets really interesting. Men tend to think there's one ideal size that all women want. The research shows something completely different. Women's preferences for penis size vary dramatically based on context, relationship type, and individual anatomy. A study from UCLA and the University of New Mexico had women evaluate 3D models of various sizes. For one-time encounters, the average preference was 6.4 inches in length and 5 inches in girth. But here's what matters more. For long-term partners, the average preference dropped to 6.3 inches in length and 4.8 inches in girth. Barely above the population average. But here's the really important finding. The variation in women's preferences was enormous. Some women preferred sizes well below average. Some preferred sizes well above. There was no single ideal that all women agreed on. Individual preference varied widely. Dr. Nicole Pross, a neuroscientist who studies sexual behavior, found something even more revealing. When women were asked about their most satisfying sexual experiences, size was not among the top 10 factors they mentioned. Not in the top 10. Think about that. The thing men obsess about most doesn't even crack women's top 10 factors for satisfaction. What did women mention? Emotional connection, communication, foreplay, rhythm and movement, attention to their pleasure. confidence without arrogance, being present and engaged. These factors dramatically outrank size in predicting satisfaction. Number 3. Bigger definitely doesn't mean better, and often means worse. This is the myth that needs to die. The assumption that bigger is always better. The research shows this is completely false, and in many cases, bigger creates problems rather than solving them. A study published in PLOS One surveyed over 75,000 heterosexual people about sexual satisfaction. Here's what they found. There was no correlation between penis size and female partner orgasm rates. None. 0. Women weren't more likely to orgasm with larger partners. In fact, multiple studies have found that women are more likely to experience discomfort or pain with partners who are significantly above average. The average vaginal depth when aroused is about 4 to 6 inches. Partners who are significantly longer can cause cervical contact, which ranges from uncomfortable to painful for many women. Sarah, a sex therapist I consulted, told me this. I've worked with countless couples where size was creating problems. Too large causes pain. Too large limits positions. Too large can make oral sex difficult or impossible. The idea that bigger is always better is one of the most damaging myths in sexual health. Think about the practical implications. If you're significantly above average, you need to be more careful, more communicative, and more limited in what you can do comfortably. You're not at an advantage. You're managing a different set of challenges. The sweet spot, according to both research and clinical experience, is average to slightly above average. That's where most women report the fewest problems and the most versatility in sexual activities. Number 4. What actually predicts sexual satisfaction has almost nothing to do with size. This is the point that should free you from size anxiety entirely. When researchers actually study what predicts sexual satisfaction in relationships, size doesn't make the list. Not even close. A comprehensive meta-analysis of studies on sexual satisfaction found the top predictors were relationship quality, communication, emotional intimacy, non-penetrative sexual activities, and partner attentiveness. Penis size wasn't mentioned as a significant factor in any of the major studies. Think about what women actually report in surveys about their best sexual experiences. They talk about feeling desired, being listened to, having their preferences respected, experiencing variety, feeling emotionally connected, having orgasms, which for most women come from clitoral stimulation, not penetration. Here's a statistic that should change your entire perspective. Only about 25% of women reliably orgasm from penetration alone, regardless of partner size. 3/4 of women need clitoral stimulation to orgasm. This means that for the vast majority of women, your size is largely irrelevant to their pleasure. What matters instead? Manual stimulation technique, oral sex skill, understanding of anatomy, communication about preferences, willingness to prioritize her pleasure, time spent on foreplay. These factors are under your complete control and have far more impact on satisfaction than something you can't change. Stay with me because we're about to address the biggest misconception about size, and this one affects how men approach sex entirely. If this is resonating with you, hit that like button. And if you know a guy who's been anxious about this topic, share this video with him. Sometimes we all need evidence-based information to counter the myths we've internalized. Number 5. The real problem isn't size, it's performance anxiety caused by worrying about size. This is the cruel irony. Anxiety about size creates sexual performance problems that actually do affect satisfaction. You become so worried about whether you measure up that you can't be present, confident, or focused on mutual pleasure. Research on male sexual anxiety shows that men who are preoccupied with size concerns are more likely to experience erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, and overall sexual dissatisfaction. Not because their size is problematic, but because their anxiety is. Mark, a urologist who specializes in male sexual health, explained it this way. I see men with perfectly normal, even above average anatomy who are convinced they're inadequate. This anxiety affects their confidence, which affects their arousal, which affects their performance. They've created a self-fulfilling prophecy based on a false belief. Think about how this plays out. You're worried about size, so you're tense and self-conscious during sex. You're in your head instead of present in the moment. You're watching yourself from the outside instead of experiencing intimacy. This kills arousal. It makes maintaining erections difficult. It leads to finishing too quickly because you're anxious. All of these things actually do affect satisfaction, but they're caused by the anxiety, not the size. Studies show that men who stop worrying about size and focus on connection, communication, and mutual pleasure report dramatic improvements in sexual satisfaction, both for themselves and their partners. The problem was never the anatomy. It was the mental state. Number 6. Technique, rhythm, and angles matter infinitely more than length. Here's what most men don't understand about female anatomy and pleasure. The most sensitive areas of the vagina are in the first third, particularly the anterior wall where the G-spot is located, and the opening where nerve endings are most concentrated. Deep penetration doesn't stimulate these areas more effectively. In many cases, it bypasses them entirely. What matters for stimulation is angle, pressure, and rhythm. A partner who understands anatomy and pays attention to response can provide significantly more pleasure with average size and good technique than a partner with above-average size and no technique. Research on female sexual response shows that consistent rhythm and pressure on the clitoral area and anterior vaginal wall are far more important than depth of penetration. Many women report that their most satisfying positions are ones where penetration is relatively shallow, but other areas are receiving stimulation. Think about what this means practically. Instead of worrying about how deep you can go, focus on angles that provide clitoral stimulation during penetration. Learn positions that allow for manual stimulation simultaneously. Pay attention to rhythm and consistency rather than power and depth. These factors are completely independent of size and far more impactful. Number 7. The only opinion about your size that matters is your partner's, and she's probably not concerned. This is the perspective shift that frees you from anxiety entirely. You're not performing for an imaginary audience. You're not competing with other men. You're engaging in intimate activity with a specific person who has her own preferences and responses. Large-scale studies consistently show that 85% of women are satisfied with their partner's penis size, while only 55% of men are satisfied with their own. Read that again. She's probably fine with your size. You're the one with the problem. Research also shows that when women are asked what they would change about their partner's body, penis size rarely makes the list. They're more likely to mention things like hygiene, grooming, or fitness level, things you can actually control and improve. Here's the conversation you should have if size anxiety is affecting you. I've been feeling self-conscious about my body. Can we talk about your actual experience and satisfaction? Most of the time, you'll find she hasn't been thinking about it at all. She's been focused on connection, pleasure, and the relationship quality. The anxiety is all yours. And if you're single and worried about how new partners will react, here's what research shows. Women who are interested in genuine connection and relationship are not screening partners based on size. If someone rejects you based on anatomy rather than who you are as a person, you've dodged a bullet. That's not someone capable of mature intimacy anyway. Now let's bust some myths because there's dangerous misinformation everywhere about this topic. Myth number 1. You can significantly increase penis size through exercises, pills, or pumps. Fact. No method has been proven to significantly increase size permanently. Most products are scams. The only medically proven method is surgery, which carries risks and is rarely recommended by urologists. Myth number 2. Women prefer large penises for pleasure. Fact. Research shows most women prefer average to slightly above average. Very large can cause discomfort or pain. Satisfaction comes from factors unrelated to size. Myth number 3. Porn represents normal or desirable size. Fact. Porn performers are selected for being well above average. They represent the statistical extremes, not the norm. Comparing yourself to porn is comparing to the top 1% of size distribution. Myth number 4. Size determines your ability to satisfy a partner. Fact. Sexual satisfaction is predicted by communication, technique, emotional connection, and attention to pleasure. Size is not a significant factor in research on satisfaction. Myth number 5. All women want the same thing in terms of size. Fact. Preferences vary enormously among women. There's no universal ideal. Some prefer smaller, some prefer larger, most are satisfied with average. Myth number 6. If you're below average, you can't have good sex. Fact. Men of all sizes report satisfying sex lives when they focus on communication, technique, and mutual pleasure. Size is largely irrelevant to actual satisfaction. Myth number 7. Your size is what your partner talks about with her friends. Fact. Research shows women rarely discuss partner size with friends. They're far more likely to discuss emotional connection, communication, and how they're treated in the relationship. Here's what I want you to do right now. First, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We're covering evidence-based health information that counters myths and reduces unnecessary anxiety. Second, leave a comment answering this question. Has anxiety about size affected your confidence or sexual experiences? You don't need to share details. Just acknowledging it helps. You'll see you're definitely not alone in this. Third, share this video with someone who needs this information. Almost every man struggles with this anxiety at some point. Evidence-based information can free people from unnecessary worry and improve their intimate lives. Let me bring this home with the most important takeaway. You've been worried about the wrong thing. Size is not the determining factor in sexual satisfaction. It's not even in the top 10. What actually matters: communication, emotional connection, technique, attention to pleasure. These are all things you can develop and improve. The average size is smaller than you thought. Most women prefer average or slightly above. Bigger doesn't mean better and often means worse. What predicts satisfaction has nothing to do with size. Your anxiety about size causes more problems than the size itself. Technique and attention matter infinitely more. And your partner is probably satisfied while you're unnecessarily worried. Here's your action plan. Stop consuming content that reinforces unrealistic standards. Stop comparing yourself to statistical extremes. Start focusing on what actually predicts satisfaction in research. Communication, emotional connection, understanding anatomy, prioritizing mutual pleasure. These factors are completely within your control and far more impactful than anatomy. If you're in a relationship, have an honest conversation about satisfaction and preferences. You'll probably find she's far more concerned about other factors than you realized. If you're single, work on becoming someone who can communicate openly about sex, who prioritizes partner pleasure, and who approaches intimacy with confidence based on more than anatomy. Thank you for watching until the end. The fact that you stayed through this entire video tells me you're serious about addressing anxiety and focusing on what actually matters. That's incredibly healthy. In the next video, we're covering the 5 lifestyle factors that actually do affect sexual performance and how to optimize them at any age. Remember this. You are enough. Your body is normal. What matters for satisfaction is within your control. Stop letting anxiety about something irrelevant rob you of confidence and presence. Focus on what the research actually shows matters, and your intimate life will improve dramatically.